Hey, it's Mark again with Brands Investors Love. And this podcast, if you're new to the show, is about helping entrepreneurs who have terrific products, but so brands build more powerful brands that make them more investment ready. And it also helps investors who may have a stable of companies in their portfolio and are looking for ways to raise the valuation of those companies. That's what this show is all about. And what I do in each show, I bring aboard an expert, and that expert talks to us about one very specific thing that you, the entrepreneur, or you, the investor, can do to help raise the valuation of your brand so that you can sell the company for a higher valuation or raise a higher sum. And today I'm thrilled to bring along somebody who helped me a great deal, Pamela Slim, author of The Widest Net and expert in helping people build out ecosystems and do tiny marketing actions. I'm not even going to explain those. You got to buy the book. You got to take her coaching classes. You got to get in touch with Pamela. But I can tell you they made a world of difference to me. Welcome.
I'm so happy to be here.
Did I butcher the intro or did I do
That
okay?
was beautiful. I love it.
Okay, you can pay me later. Pam, we want to talk today not about tiny marketing actions, not about the ecosystem, but we want to talk about something that's going to apply to a lot of entrepreneurs who are trying to raise money or exit their business. That is the cult of the founder and codifying the processes that you have. Let's talk a little bit about the cult of the founder. Give us the backgrounder.
A lot of folks, when they start businesses, get really excited often in the creation of the prototype of the idea, whether it's a professional service business or whether a software product or a physical product. But it's really easy to get wrapped up, especially in today's world of social media, into believing that your message to the market and the value in the market is your ability to execute directly as the founder. We've certainly seen tons of examples of that through the years of people who get excited about founders like a Steve Jobs at Apple. But it really, in the world that I live in, with a lot of professional services businesses, many people can get confused that the only value that their firm is providing is when they are very specifically leading the charge for doing direct service in the business. And my ongoing thing that I always tell them is we need to get processes, IP models, methods out of your head and codified, because the value in your business is the business that you're creating, fueled by you as the founder. Your story is interesting, but if you want to scale in any way, bring in more people, have other people delivering services or selling products, or if you want to scale, you really need to codify it and get it out of your head. The genesis of it comes from my prior book, Body of Work, which was all about how you build something great that is very aligned with what's important. And then when The Widest Net helps people how to bring it out in the world, you see this correlation of you have to build something really important, but if you want it to scale, you have to get it out of your head and down into a method.
You know, it's funny you brought up social media, and I remember working for an ad agency, and we had a brilliant creative director, and he was the figurehead, and that created almost like this messiah conundrum where everybody wanted to work with the creative director, even though we did all the work. So we figured a way around it in that he would walk into the meetings and go, this is the approach that we're going to take, and they'd go, oh yeah, that's the one we're going to take, and we're like, what the heck? What did he just do? He didn't do anything. He just walked in and said this one. But we realized that that was the conundrum that we were in, unless he signed off on something with a client very publicly and very open view, they'd go, did the Messiah have his eyes on this? And that's something that we saw as not terribly productive. But do you think social media, you have founders going out on Twitter and creating this personality for themselves. Everyone is a personal brand. That strikes me as something that's actually counterproductive.
It is. I think there is a role and a function depending upon the founder, what the message is, their own personal style, how they want to be building their business, as to how prominently they feature themselves as really the lead ambassador or salesperson for the company. There are some people who, from the beginning, do really center the message of the company itself. And in many ways, I think about it as powered by that founder, like the Intel Inside, right? That you have this idea that how cool is it that this interesting person has this business, but really what the story is the business. What is the model? What's the method? What makes it unique? And if we were to deconstruct something like the example that you shared of every client feeling like something was wrong if they didn't have the head of the agency in that meeting, we could probably analyze all of the communications, the way that that person talked when they were out doing business with others, how they actually built relationships, what they were stressing in terms of the value that the company provided. And I find it's often inadvertent on the part of the founder or even the executive team, depending on the size and scale of the company, where they may not even realize that they're not really telling the story of the value of the business. And in particular, what they're doing, what their method is, what their process is, that is really revolutionary. And that's the story that we want to be highlighting.
Well, there's also it could really come to bite you in the butt if you're trying to exit a business and start another business. I know a lot of founders are in the startup business. They love starting up new things and then, exiting those businesses and leaving their staff with an acquirer. And I could imagine that business, if it was founder driven, would deflate like a balloon as soon as the founder's gone. The magic's gone. And that would be really that would be pretty serious if you're exiting a business.
It's true. So to me, it's why it's never too early to begin to go through the process of noticing, identifying, and begin to codify. How do you actually do business? What's your point of view? What's the method? What are the steps? What are the stages? What's your approach?
Mm-hmm.
And if you build that into always having that a core of what you do, as you bring more people into the business, you also build in good lessons learned, debriefing, improvement. I like to think of service businesses, probably because I spent the first 10 years of my business in Silicon Valley, as if they were software businesses. So if we're trying to get all the bugs out and make things more efficient and effective and a great user interface, the same thing is really true for professional services businesses. We want things to be well designed and really streamlined and optimized for the best results. So if you think about that from the beginning, and then you work within your team with your branders and marketers and the team to make sure that the story really is about what is unique, then it becomes where your clients, in some cases, are more excited to not work with you. I had this happen last week as I'm building a team of instructional designers. We build a lot of licensing and certification programs for people who want to scale professional services through licensing their content to others. And I had that beautiful realization in the meeting, like, I am really not adding a lot of extra value at all. Like my clients were
Nice.
talking with them and they were nerding out about their instructional objectives. And it was the most beautiful moment because I
Wow.
realized my magic is in business development and evangelism of the idea. And they actually do it better than I do. And that's really what I want as a founder.
Nice. What a relief. So let's get on to the meat in the sandwich, because my point with this podcast is to have everybody walk away with something they can do. And let's talk about codifying your intellectual property. I started doing it with brands investors love. I do it with, when I write presentations for people, when I work on their positioning. I have templates for everything. It's super important to do it because it gives clients a sense of comfort, doesn't it? That you've done this before and that they're going to get a predictable outcome.
Exactly. So I think the high level of what to do, and you can start very loosely, just beginning to document things on a flip
Mhm.
chart or a whiteboard or just on your Google Docs. And that is first, just to be clear, what problem are you solving? I come from the Susan Beyer of audience audits method of defining your audience by problem, challenge, or aspiration. So we
Mhm.
think about what they're trying to do, build a certification program. You want to document that. That's really the problem you're solving. and then you can have a specific point of view that you codify. Like, what's our point of view about how this should be done? Maybe in an efficient, effective way that's streamlined, or maybe it's centering the learner. Whatever your method is for your business, you want to just mention what is your point of view about how that problem should be solved. And then just take a typical number of client engagements and just ask yourself, what do we do in the beginning? What's the next step after that? What's the next step after that? What are some of those milestones? What are some of the deliverables? And just beginning to lay it out. I find it most effective when you're following an actual client engagement. That can help you to see what you do. Once you do that, you can lean far in. Usually the first thing you say is, oh my gosh, there's some missing steps. Like, why don't we do this? We should do a better job at onboarding. We should do a better job at offboarding, whatever it is. So immediately you see what can improve, but then you go through the process of iteration, refinement, and often the naming of a method,
Uh-huh.
the description, the defining of what visual you'll use to define it.
I love that. Now, clients love it, but it's also extremely comforting, I think, if you're talking to investors, right? If you're saying, well, you know what? Yeah, I'm the founder of the company, but this company is all about repeatable processes so that you could take me out of the equation and the thing would run absolutely fine. So is it as simple as just starting to write stuff down? And then how do you get the word out about this? Or do you guard it like, McDonald's secret sauce or the Colonel Sanders, 11 herbs and spices? What do you throw this out to the world? I'm a big fan of throwing it out to the world because
Mm.
as far as I'm concerned, it's like sheet music. It's how you play the music that matters. Any thoughts on
I
that?
I agree. I think in terms of doing it yourself or not, if you have the skill to do it, I have found over the years there are certain people who are just really good at understanding how to document and describe models and methods. And
Mhm.
so sometimes there are folks with an instructional design perspective, or there are some certain people who think that way. So if you're not that person and you just get a big list of 27 things that you do that doesn't really fall into a flow, then you might want to bring somebody else in who can help you to see the patterns to codify it. So it depends on who you have, skills you have yourself and your team.
And
In terms of,
what about
yeah,
sharing? Yeah, sharing. I want to get onto sharing because
yeah,
I've heard mixed
the
things.
the sharing of it, I put on my internal angel intellectual property attorney friends on my shoulder. I work with them all day, every day, and I say, to protect your intellectual property, make sure before you do share it that you go through the appropriate protocols of making sure that your ideas are protected, you have any trademarks, you have anything that way, just so that your intellectual property is really protected if it's something unique. And of course, it depends on what we're talking about here. Is it a new and improved cure to cancer? Is it a better way that people can do their bookkeeping? There's so many different things that people design their businesses around. So they can require a little different level of intellectual property protection. Once that is in place, I am a gigantic fan, like you, of sharing ideas so that people know. Now, let's say you have a high level message about, we work with people who have this problem. Here's our unique approach. This is what we believe about it. And here's the high level of the model. You don't need to give them the 97 pages of background and the secret sauce and the, grinding of data that you do in a unique way that gives them results. But I think you are doing yourself a disservice, many people do, to hold things so tight to the chest that nobody knows about them. And then very often mediocre ideas with an enthusiastic marketer are the ones that actually make it out there because people are so worried about guarding things closely to their chest.
I fully agree. It's really funny, when startups come to me and they ask me to sign an NDA, and I've seen their idea a million times, and I go, sure, I'll sign your NDA, but trust me, I don't care. And I've seen this idea before, and if you're worried about protecting your idea that closely, and I've seen it before, if you're worried about protecting it, I can tell you that there's somebody out there who's already done it. And I think you're worried about the wrong thing. I had a great quote from somebody said, if you're looking around to litigate people for taking your idea, you're not moving fast enough forward. And I'm sure there's wonderful examples of protecting your ideas. like you talked about, but I
Yeah.
also think that you got to keep pushing forward. But I'm going off on a tangent. I think that this is so valuable. In fact, I'm working with clients right now who are in the process of codifying what's in their head. And I think it's a wonderful thing. You've written a book, I've written a book of getting the idea that's in your head out on paper. You're also a teacher. I taught university. I taught a marketing course, and I had to redo the course, and that made me realize all this stuff was stuck in my head. So if I got a cold, nothing happened. If I wrote it all down and designed the course, then anybody could give the course. It's a wonderful thing. It's very liberating.
It's very liberating. It really helps you. And as I said, one of the advantages is when you do begin to document, you realize where the holes are, where you can streamline, you can automate. So whether or not you end up getting investment, if you decide to sell, it will make a stronger, more functional business. And it also leads to better service delivery. When
Hmm.
you're conscious about what you're doing, you make sure that you really have a very thorough process. And I honestly don't see any downsides to it.
Hmm.
What's interesting is that really the vast majority of people that I've worked with over the last 27 years and like all size different organizations don't take the time to do it. So it's interesting is that, they're just like, that sounds great, but I will do it later on and I'm
Hmm.
just too busy. And this is one of the examples that people are earlier in their journey. It's like maybe drinking water every day, like we have to do here in Arizona in the desert. You just need to begin by knowing that that's what you're doing. And if you
Hmm.
do it as part of the course of your business, and then you build in some planning cycles to where you're doing the debrief and you're noticing what you need to fix and tweak and improve, then it just becomes part of the way that you do business. And it will put you miles ahead of other people down the road because the more complex your business gets, the less time you often have. And then I just find people feel stuck. Founders are all deeply ingrained, as we said, from a branding perspective, where they can't even describe what they do that's different.
Hmm.
And it becomes much harder to get high levels of investment or to sell the company if that's what you're looking to do.
I love having you in my ecosystem. Thank you so much for taking the time. This has been massively valuable.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. And again, Pamela Slim, the widest net, game changer for me. The idea of tiny marketing actions, game changers. Building an ecosystem, game changer. I highly recommend everyone, whether you're an entrepreneur, an investor, or whatnot, to check out Pam's book and go to her website. Pam, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Awesome.